What should be the start?
Let's talk about what we're going to do for dinner.
We weren't talking about what we were going to do for dinner. We were talking about who's going to call the place to put the order in.
I'm peopled out today.
Because neither of us wants to talk to any more people except for each other for the next hour or so or whatever. Hey, everybody, and welcome to We Watch TV. It is the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel. She is Hope. This is episode 109. We are back. It is July, if you can believe it. And at least in our neck of the woods, it's hot. We actually went to Florida to get away from the heat.
Oh, you've been itching to make that dad joke for days. I think there was like one day the whole week while we were down in Orlando that it was either the same or it was hotter where we were than here, which is crazy.
Yeah.
When we landed in Columbus on Saturday evening, I felt like, well, other than the excitement and joy, I mean, I had the depression and sadness, but other than that, like the excitement and joy I get when I land in Florida. But anyway, I felt like how it feels when you land in Florida and you're walking out that tunnel and you get that heat. Only it was welcoming me back to Ohio.
Yeah, it's not as fun of an experience.
And we were on that plane forever.
Yeah, you've got a really good video. Maybe you'll put it on.
I could put it on
Instagram. Like we were sitting, something was going on with the weather when we were leaving Orlando. Our plane pulled away from the gate, and then they were only letting one plane leave at a time.
And they had to wait
like 20 miles before somebody could go again. And it was like 10 or 15 planes just sitting there on the runway.
So long. The video I took and the picture I took, you can't even see where it ends, just the line of planes from all different airlines. And I kept kind of nodding off, and then I'm like, we're still on the ground. We haven't taken off yet. And then finally the captain, I wonder if he talked to his co-pilot and they came up with what they wanted to say. That he came on and was like, hey, and like we could be here. And then he like majorly overestimated. He's like, you're looking at landing in Columbus around 9. And we're like, what? And I think we ended up like around like 8-ish,
yeah.
8:15-ish. So thankfully we didn't sit there that long. And thankfully we were at a place where we were still moving slightly, because I've been stuck at the gate before, like the coffee maker thing.
Right.
Where when we got stuck there, like the AC isn't like flowing. There's no airflow and you're just hot. So I don't think it felt that like terribly miserable, but it was just like, okay, what is going on? Other than that, that was a really, really great trip there was some funny incidences that we'll get into, but I thought it was a wonderful vacation. Probably one of the most relaxed, full-blown. We do in the summertime. That's when we take our full-blown week at Disney. We don't have any running getting in the way, and we just try to chill. And I think it was the most relaxed we've had.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. At least for several years.
We just leaned into the thing, you know what? We're just not evening park people. We'd rather be in our pajamas by like 3 p.m., eating our dinners in bed.
We're barely afternoon park people.
Barely. Like, we like to, like, right after lunch, we like to get the heck out of there. I think there were 2 different nights we went to dinner. We went to Kona over at the Poly for dinner one evening. So, and it was like we got back to the room and we knew we only had like a couple hours before we went off to dinner. And it was literally like we were both of us so badly wanted to take a nap and take a shower. But we're like, no, we want to have this dinner. And then we had another nice dinner, our very last night on the 4th of July. We stayed at the Contemporary Resort, and there's a restaurant called California Grill.
Very fancy.
Very fancy. Mr. Fancy Man. It's at the very top of the Contemporary. You take a special elevator to get up there. There's a dress code. Which we'll get into. And that's what we did for that. And that evening went by a little faster because we went to the pool. Then we also had to do some shopping.
Yeah.
So why don't we just kick into that real quick?
I think that's the best place to start. So we went to the fancy restaurant. There's a dress code. I'm pretty sure we discussed this before we even left for vacation.
I absolutely told you like 5 times to make sure you had a nice color shirt, polo, something in your bag, because
all my shirts are colored.
With a color on it, Daniel. I made sure to tell you. This is why, and I tried not to monitor every packing decision you make. And I should have known better when you were going through the shirts and be like, should I bring this one? This is looking like a snack. Should I bring my People Mover shirt? Like, I should have been like, do you have that shirt?
I did not.
He did not.
So I went down to fortunately, at the Contemporary, there's a pretty nice merchandise store.
Yeah.
And they have not just like Disney branded stuff, but like actual clothing.
Probably for this experience.
Oh, no, for sure this experience. So I went down to the store, 2 hours before, 3 hours before?
It was about 2 hours before we had to really start
And I told you, I said, I'm going to go down, I'm going to find a nice, like, subtle, short sleeved collared shirt with button up, and $50-$60, right?
That's what I thought the pricing would be.
So minimum pricing for the most hideous,
and I'm getting these texts, by the way, while I'm laying in
awful
bed.
shirts you could possibly imagine, loud as can be. Which, by the way, if you know me, if you've seen me in public, I'm not wearing it.
No.
$100 minimum price. That is the lowest you can go. The only cheaper shirt that I could have bought was a kid's shirt, but I'm sure they didn't have like quadruple XL boys shirts in there.
A little cheaper, but it had like, and if you're gonna get to a point where you're spending like over $80 on a shirt, you do want it to be something that can be like your new vacation.
Yeah, I got
nice
my new
shirt,
vacation
maybe
shirt.
like a nice work shirt, and it had like a Mickey on it, and I was like, well, don't get the one with the singular Mickey. I was like, get the plain one. So you found a nice plain blue one, which I wanted you to be in a hue of blue anyway, because it was the 4th of July, and I had a blue dress, so of course I wanted to.
So I get this new
outfits.
shirt. I put it on. I think it looks nice.
It did look nice.
I think it will, again, for the next decade or so, it will be my fancy vacation shirt.
Yes.
I will take it with me on vacation, specifically to go to nicer places.
For once, you were the more expensive dressed one, because my blue dress with the light blue flowers from Old Navy was like $15.
Yeah.
So you were the one. It was you. Daniel was the money that night.
So we get up to the restaurant. We get seated. We're having a nice time. The food is good.
So good.
I'm really fancy because I go with the wine that was recommended with the dish I got. I'm being real fancy. We're in the restaurant. We had to be in the restaurant for maybe 45 minutes when I drop food on my new shirt.
So I look at Daniel and I see, we can't even tell the best part yet, but we'll get to that. I just look at him and I'm like, what did you do? And I see this splotch all over the front of it.
Black.
And he had dropped his asparagus. And instead of just letting it...
was asparagus, like it was drenched in like a balsamic vinaigrette kind of thing. I don't know what was on it, but it was deep black.
Instead of like letting it like slightly touch the shirt and just drop to the floor, he tries to save it. Like, were you going to eat it after it touched your
okay.
shirt?
So here's what happened.
Here's
what happened. All right. The asparagus is on my fork. I'm bringing it to the mouth. It drops off the fork, and in that split moment, if I had let it fall, it would have missed the shirt and hit probably my pants onto the floor.
That would have been better than the front of your shirt. But
instead, for some reason, I panicked and leaned forward and pinned the asparagus in between my shirt and the table.
Can't take you anywhere.
Just smashing it into my shirt.
And then... he's like trying to blot it off with his napkin, and he takes his glass of water and tries to use the condensation to rub it around, and it just makes it worse and spread out. And I was like, just leave it alone. And they're going to dim the lights soon because they they do this for every night, because every night there's fireworks at Disney, but for the 4th, obviously they had the special fireworks show. So we're like, they're going to turn the lights off for the fireworks show. Anyway, not many people are going to see you. Our waiter probably already doesn't think we're very fancy because I ordered the kids' dessert. So it was like, let's just roll with it. Let's just roll with it. Hey, I did not get the kids' shells and cheese. I got the adult dish, the pierogies, the vegan option. I'm not vegan, but I'll often order a lot of vegan stuff at Disney. And they've ruined Mrs. T's pierogies for me, even though I still like those because they were good. The best pierogies ever. So I did get, and I got the grown-up appetizer, the ravioli, the goat cheese ravioli, by the way. That was like the best thing I ate on the whole trip, by the way.
It was very, very,
but I draw
very
the
good.
line at some of the desserts. I was like, the kid's dessert had like this cookies and cream, like in between chocolate chip cookies, ice cream sandwich thing going on with some mousse and caramel sauce. And when I asked him, you could tell that a lot of other grown-ups order that, because he was like, yeah, you can get that. Because so like, and you have to tell him what you want for dessert like before you order anything. And he was really chill. He's like, we're gonna do appetizers, entrees, fireworks, then dessert. So he already had that probably impression of us in mind that, maybe we weren't the fanciest people.
But so back to shirt drama, and I think you mentioned this before.
Yes.
Before I stained it, should recall that I saw at least 3 other guys in the restaurant
With the same
with not the same shirt, but shirts that I saw when I was in the store looking for
that
shirts.
were clearly purchased at the
Correct,
gift shop.
yes.
I wonder if they ruined their shirt.
I got that stain out. I got the stain out.
When
The
we
stain
got
is out.
home, I'm just saying, I wonder if they stained it immediately and then tried to take the condensation of their water glass off and rub it around in a fancy restaurant. And then, I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. So after Daniel has stained it, I think you got up to see if we had a really nice table, y'all. So, they have these big windows in the restaurant you can see the fireworks from, or you can go on the observation deck. I used my, my rock hard brain here. And, I am a travel planner. I can plan your Disney vacation, so keep that in mind. I'm very good at planning stuff. Am I not, Daniel?
You are.
I nailed the timing of our reservation perfectly, and we got seated perfectly near a window so that we didn't have to get up. But you went outside just to check it out to see how busy it was on the deck in case we'd want to go outside and watch, which we didn't have to. We could be bougie and just sit in our seats. So what happened when you came back in to sit down? And this was after you had the stain on your shirt.
I think I was preoccupied with having my hand over that spot on my shirt while I was walking through the restaurant, so no one noticed it. And so I slide by. Our table was one of those ones where you had a chair,
Yes.
but I was on one of the built-in bench seats.
Yes.
And so I slide myself back in on the bench seat, and I guess I caught the corner of the tablecloth.
Next thing I know,
as I was sliding in,
I'm catching my plate from
and
falling off.
not all of our plates were on there, but we had a big jar of water and all of our drinks, and I stopped right before it got bad.
Well, I had to help because I was like, whoa. He about pulled off. You almost pulled off the entire tablecloth. I was saying, well, I think we would have just had to get up and leave and throw some money on the table.
I would have just put
or
my
something.
credit card on the table and just walked out.
Yeah. That and then we had to arrange everything. Another reason why we're not the fanciest people, we were both like, wow, this is really good water. Because they set the glass, we had our own thing, and it did it. It's from a glacier in Alaska. So that was dinner. It was a nice 4th of July dinner.
It really was.
Nice fireworks.
I
nice
did
little
everything in my
show.
power to ruin it, but it was so good of a dinner, I couldn't ruin it.
It was funny. It was just part of the vibes. The vibes were vibing. And it is a nice shirt. And thankfully, I am spill prone. So I know that I didn't have any with me, but we had tied the spray stain stuff at the house. And you were able to get that out the next morning. Came out first wash, correct?
Yep.
So now you have a new fancy shirt for vacation.
So if you are somebody who follows us on social media, you get used to it. Because all of our vacation pictures, at least one of them are going to have that shirt in it. As I got to wear it.
Yeah.
I spent enough money on it, and I've
nice.
cleaned it enough. I've got to wear it.
And I'm getting the messages about the pricing and what the shirts look like in pictures while I'm laying in bed, trying to just chill before I have to really start getting ready for dinner. And then one of the texts I get is, couple in front of me is being very handsy.
I don't understand what the store is doing. So, the store is a
no
merch.
comment on the handsy?
Yeah, well, no, I'm getting there. It's a merch store, but they also sell fudge and stuff.
Well, they have there's multiple at the Contemporary. Isn't just one main gift shop. They have multiple little gift shops on that 4th floor concourse, and the shop that you were in has the clothing, the normal merch, but then they have a whole candy section, just like you get at the confectionery. It's almost like a mini version of that.
Well, that was the only register open, and the line was long.
Oh, and you didn't get me any fudge?
And I was behind
cookies?
an older couple. I'll just leave it there. And hands were in pockets.
Define old, because some people would call us old.
At least 15 years older than we are.
I want to call that old. So Xers, they weren't so they weren't boomers.
No,
right?
no. Hands were in pockets.
Ew.
And
in the sweaty weather? I mean, don't touch me.
yeah. Tank tops were being worn.
And I will say that the dress code was not enforced like they say it's going to be enforced, because we totally saw a tank top man enter. Because if you...
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. who was shouting in his friend. I'm surprised they didn't get thrown out. They did bring up security, though. Did you notice
Security
that?
came up, yes.
After they were like shouting, because if you have a dinner reservation at California Grill, so let's say you have a dinner reservation at 5 and you're done, you can show like your receipt that you dined there and be let back in to watch the fireworks from the observation deck. So they clearly came back up. I don't know if they changed. I specifically, like, their like website is like very much like, hey, make sure you adhere to this dress code. I think that sometimes Disney's not always going to enforce it. They just want to make sure people don't look like total slobs there. But, again, it's up to
swimwear.
It's up to the discretion of the cast member. But anyway, Jeff and his tank top, these people just start screaming at each other. So, you're literally a drop in the bucket, like you're staying.
Yeah, I have no power compared to Florida Man. Like, none whatsoever.
All right, so some other funny moments from the trip. Let's see here. Oh, we started off the trip on a hilariously funny note, if you will. We always like to do, when we're at Disney, like a Walmart order. So we can get some, some paper towels, some tissues. I usually get some water and some pops, just so we don't have to pay $1 million for pop and water and everything. And for some reason, you're getting the text and you're not even telling me what they say, because I think we were at Steakhouse 71 for dinner that night. It was our first night we were there, and you weren't even telling me what they said. So one, I didn't even know that there were substitutions. I thought the prices were expensive anyway, and I was like, oh, well, maybe that's like tariffs or something. I'm asking Daniel, I'm like, this is a lot of money to get like these tissues. I just wanted a few boxes of tissues, and I always get, because they help me with my makeup. I do have a perpetual runny nose, like 365 days a year. It's just like we call it the Bennett family, like runny nose. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to make sure I at least had a couple boxes, and then I just you never know what's going to happen. So I wanted some tissues. I don't like the tissues that they give you in the hotel. And I was like, this is really expensive, Daniel, for like tissues. And he goes, no, that's what I always pay. And I was like,
in my
wow.
In my defense, I was very tired, and I explained to you later after we came to our senses.
But I even asked you like 3 different times. I was like, really? This is how much you pay? And I'm like, wow, prices really have gone up. So I just went about, my day. Had a nice evening. And we get the text. Finally, Daniel's like actually showing me the text about our stuff that's delivered. So we have to go down to Bell Services to tell them they can send it up. And they were waiting for us.
This ginger
I think we made his night.
Waiting.
Just waiting.
For the person to show up with this order. Because I get to the table and he's like, hey, sir, how can I help you? and the Disney people are nice.
Yeah,
but they aren't this nice.
It was weird.
And I'm like, yeah, I got, Walmart order pickup, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what's the name? Give him the name. And he's like, okay, yeah, we got you. Can I just ask one question? What are you going to do with all these tissues?
And I'm sitting there like, we didn't order that many. You're like, yeah, maybe a lot.
That's the moment when I peek behind him and I see on the cart the 28 boxes
27.
of tissues.
27
and I go,
boxes of
and so I answer him, I think somebody may have misclicked something in the app.
We could have supplied a school classroom with their tissues, more than one school classroom. I know, when you were in school, were you like, it was always like on my list, like bring a box of tissues each year. You know how you get your list of stuff you bring to class? And
That's what sleeves are for.
What?
That's what sleeves are for.
Okay, well, at my elementary school, there was always like required, like bring a box of tissues, and I come to find out years later that teachers asked that because the school like board wouldn't pay for tissues for the classroom. That's why we always had to bring one. And then one year I had one teacher,
best country in the world.
I had a teacher one year that would be like, we have tissue on a roll, and she would just have a thing of toilet paper out in our class that if you had to blow your nose, you just come up and tear a piece off.
I'm not going to get too political, but we can hand out bombs and bullets to any of our friends as much as we want, but we can't, heaven forbid, the kids have school supplies.
I really wish there had been a way for us to figure out how to donate some of the tissues, but I'm sitting there like, we didn't get that many. Why is this guy smarting off to me? And you're like, and I'm like, misclick the app. And I'm like, you told me that's how much they cost. And then you were like, oh, I forgot. That's how much I usually pay when I get tissues, plus toilet paper, plus paper towels. So needless to say,
plus snackies, plus, beer.
We had a variety of tissues throughout the week.
Plethora.
And at one point,
you did not need to be conservative.
I thought I was going to spill something at one point, and Daniel was like, don't spill that. And I was like, well, thank God we have enough stuff to wipe it up with. We have 27 boxes of tissues. And then I did get you to agree with me. He didn't tell me what the texts were saying. We had one substitution that was just like the worst ever. My water that I ordered, they substituted for that horrible Sam's Choice water. I think it tastes like mold. I've never liked that kind of water. And you were like, you're being a little dramatic. Then about Daniel, after you drink like a bottle of it, you were like, this water is really bad. And I was like, I told you. I'd rather drink Deer Park water than that.
I kept drinking it.
Yeah, but you admit it. I mean, but you're the type you'll get like you'll throw up off of a food, and then an hour later be like, "Well, I had another piece of that, the same food that makes you sick." So you're an unreliable narrator in that format. Did anything else like ridiculous? I feel like there was a couple other funny things, and now I'm just like losing my brain.
Every trip always has something, but we usually forget them. We don't write it down. Shenanigans take place. I enjoyed every vacation we have a theme. We have some sort of like a ongoing meme, and you quoted it this year. It just seemed like a lot of people's first day on Earth was at Disney.
That started at the airport. Yeah. Starting at the airport in Columbus, Ohio. People acted like they had never flown before. They didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was like everyone's first day on Earth.
Yeah, like just like, oh.
And at Disney too.
What do we do? How does this work? We do what? We stand and smile, and you point that little black box at me, and then it saves that image to an app, but I have to scan my thing? Oh, magic.
I will say, though, some of the airport stuff, the continuous changes and not consistency, I do give people a break for that, because on our flight home, I was asking, because sometimes they're like, everything in the bin. Then they'll be like, oh my gosh, how dare you put your shoes in the bin? Oh no. And then I'll be like, you better put those shoes in that bin right now, girl. So I was like, hey, so do you want, so I've just started asking because I'm getting tired of being screamed at. And so he's at the same airport and it's just so intense. And I was like, hey, I'm like, do you want me to put my shoes in the bin or on the thing? And the woman like mumbles under her breath something. She's like, well, those shoes. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what she just said. So I asked the other guy and he's like, keep your shoes on, as if like, why on earth would we ever take our shoes off at the airport, where I've only been taking my shoes off at the airport for the past
24 years. Very specifically years. 24 years.
But his whole tone was like, what? Keep them on. Like, ew. Like, why would you take them off?
I heard him. You
idiot. And I'm just like, all right.
I was sitting there and like, I don't. Okay. So in my older age, I've starting to get kind of mouthy.
You are mouthy, especially with me.
However, when it comes to security, like TSA or even security getting into the parks,
you just want to get
I just shut up, because anything I say can and will be used against me, and it will just make my day and my passage through this security checkpoint more difficult if I start mouthing off. But I had to like pinch myself not to be like, what do you mean we aren't taking our shoes off?
If he had just said, oh, we're leaving shoes on today, in that tone, I'd be like, oh, okay. But the way he said it to me, as it was like, duh, you moron, why would you take your shoes off? That's why I was so like, oh. And don't get me wrong, it was so nice not having to take my shoes off. I loved not having to take my shoes off. But yeah, that was weird. Very strange.
I got my bag searched again, as always.
A couple different times, yeah.
Several times. This is the Disney security, by the way, because they can't be consistent either.
But it's still, they're still quick and efficient.
And they start having me undo my belt.
That was weird.
I'd never had them do that before. They're like, take off the belt. Let's make sure there's nothing else under there.
And I would say maybe it's because it was like a holiday week, but like the crowds that is the lowest crowds we have had since that one time we did our very first Run Disney weekend back in January. Like, and I guess a lot of people said last year, like the 4th of July week was like the week to go because crowds were actually low. And I was like, well, maybe that was a fluke. Because I was actually like, it just happened to be that was the week, like it worked out for us best to go on vacation with our schedules that week. So I had always said, like, you won't catch me at Disney on like a major holiday. And then now I've done Halloween, which, I mean, to me, that's a major holiday. But I think like 4th of July, like that's one that people actually get off for work. So major. The only crowd part we had was when we stood for almost 2 hours in the baking sun to get a picture with Pluto, Goofy, and Mickey in their little patriotic outfits. And it was, you even admitted, it was worth the sweat. They were so cute.
Yes.
It was worth the sweat.
But it was awful.
We were very sweaty.
I don't know why that line was so long.
I was using the umbrella until we got under the shade part for like shade.
No wind.
That was our hottest day, for sure, was the 4th. Like, every other morning we had started was, like, kind of hazy and overcast, and it would feel hot, but not, like, horribly hot. Like, the 4th of July, it was like, hey, America, here's some heat. But that was fun. That was cute. I really liked that. I was like, this is, like, the one thing I want to do today is to get these pictures. And then we had quite an experience at lunch that day. We went to Regal Eagle. Really good quick service in Epcot, by the way. And we just happened to hit up lunch when it was like in a downpour. We avoided most of the weather, most of the trip, but that was one of the ones we were out in it. And this couple decides that they're going to come stand in the most busy restaurant, quick service restaurant, in probably all of the park to get out of the rain. You know, instead of going to see the American Adventure show, they could have seen that. Instead of going to a gift shop, they decide they're going to stand and get out of the rain. And they're going to stand basically on Daniel's lap, like right behind him. And you like couldn't even like get out of your seat to go get like a drink.
If I
they were
sat
right
up,
there. They weren't moving.
If I sat up straight instead of
Boomers,
slouching like I normally do, I touched them.
Yeah. Well, she almost tripped me, the woman. Like, I got up to go get like some napkins and some utensils and stuff, and I said, "Excuse me," and she still didn't move. And then I went, "Excuse me," she still didn't move. So I tried to get around her, and like there was like a puddle from where everyone's dripping in their horrible ponchos, and I almost slipped. And I went, "Oh, well, that was fun." And then I just like gave them the death stare. I don't know if that works. I think they were just so oblivious.
Yeah, they were giving me the lead paint stare back.
But that food. So the Disney chicken tendies are like my favorites, and in general, I think they're like magic, pixie dusted. I don't know what was in the ones at Regal Eagle, but I'm gonna have to go back and get me another kids meal with those chicken tendies.
You didn't even get to try all the barbecue sauces because of how chaotic it was.
Well, I couldn't get up there. You had to. It was like the Hunger Games, literally, to get up there. But it was really good food. We have a new, well, at least I do. I don't know. Do you agree with me? I have a new #1 beverage in all of Epcot.
It's really good.
I always usually go for the Strombo or the Grey Goose Slush. Strombo's in UK and the Grey Goose Slush is in France. America finally doing something right, coming through for us and taking the dub for the frozen black cherry bourbon lemonade.
Yep. It's not the name doesn't roll off the tongue. I think they could workshop the name of the drink a little bit.
They should call it something cutesy. Like
it's very good.
Like Captain America beverage. I don't.
That's not any better.
I don't know. Anyway.
Keep working on it.
Hey Daniel, who's your second favorite Ninja Turtle?
I mean Michelangelo, but
that was the first time we had those.
Yeah.
We're walking to Italy, and I was just thinking about the Ninja Turtles. So
You'd also had two. You'd also had two of those drinks.
I know your favorite is Raphael, and I was like, "Hey, who's your second favorite Ninja Turtle?"
That was while we were getting gelato, which I wouldn't recommend if you're going to eat it in the middle of the afternoon
Gelato's
heat.
Good for the evening or like a spring day when it's like less hot. The putting in the dairy and then having to hike back to the monorail.
It was bad.
Wasn't recommended. I normally love the gelato in Italy. My popcorn still slap from Germany. The Lava U float, top tier snack.
I had 3 of them this trip.
You did. I had 2 of them. You had 3 of them. We had a first time in our history of being together ever. So our last day, we went in the Magic Kingdom for a little bit on Saturday before we had to catch our flight. And we both just we had the Gaston cinnamon rolls for our breakfast. So we just wanted something smaller, kind of a snack to hold us over till we could get food at the airport. And Daniel's like, "I'm getting me another Lava float." And I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "I'm feeling savory. I want some of the pepperoni spring rolls." So it was the very first time ever that you got something sweet and I got something savory. And I'm not talking about in our marriage. I'm talking about in our time being together. We have been together since the fall of 2003, and this is a first for us. That was crazy.
It's a very good dessert.
It is very good.
It's very good.
Very good. If you guys saw my Instagram reel, maybe I'll put it on the We Watch TV one. I did the TikTok trend of making the Tower of Terror camera my own Glambot camera. It was a hit. I didn't know if it was going to turn out well. And that's the first time where Daniel's like smiling the whole time on the ride. Cause usually, even though you're having the time of your life, you always have this like stoic face, but you're watching me like flipping my hair. And then I look at the whole video and there were other people, they look like Gen Zers. So I'm like clearly, being very youthful, that were doing it too. That did the same thing. I was like, oh, they were doing it. And I hope that they had the same reaction when they watched the video, and they were happy knowing that they weren't the only ones that participated in the trend. And I hope that everybody else that watches that video, including Armpit Man behind me, as you lovingly called him,
Pits
is
out.
like, oh, look at this girl. Yeah, his armpits were like, I'm trying to do this Glambot video, and I just like armpit behind my head.
That was a good trip.
It was a good trip. So much fun. A lot of good meals. Kona was good for dinner. Steakhouse 71, breakfast, dinner. I actually like their breakfast better than their dinner. Hot take. Those pancakes are like pixie dusted. There's something in them that just makes them amazing. And I had been like bugging you for like 2 months. I was like, I want pancakes. I want pancakes. And you were like, bah. And so I got my pancakes fixed. That was nice.
It's just pancakes are very, it's too hot for pancakes.
But not too hot for a steak.
No.
Pancake, they were amazing. And then
I don't think
California Grill was great.
I don't think I'm wrong here, listeners. I don't think I'm wrong here. Steak and pancakes, not like if I'm going to eat a bunch of pancakes and then it's like 90 degrees outside.
I'll eat pancakes, Mickey waffles anytime, no matter the weather.
But I'll have a steak anytime, no matter the weather.
You'll drink a whole pressed pot of hot coffee before going out in the hot sun.
Well,
you'll do that?
I have to have the caffeine.
You'll do that?
You know what? Give me anything. It's got caffeine.
Anyway, the pancakes.
I need the caffeine.
California Grill was great, despite all the shenanigans. I think the shenanigans made it more fun, though.
It did.
It made it more fun because we're not really fancy people. I think the last time we went there was over a decade ago, and it was a great trip. Oh, and then you realize how tall you are. I did a Moana build one day, so we got my picture with Moana. And in the picture, like, she and I are the same height, and then you joined us, and you just look like a giant.
Yeah.
Compared to
what was I made a fool of myself at Steakhouse 71 the first night too.
You did?
I asked them what something on the menu was, and it was like they acted the server acted like it was the most obvious thing anyone could have ever.
Oscar?
Yeah, you were add-ons. You could either add on like shrimp or Oscar, and it didn't say what Oscar was.
I didn't know what Oscar was either. You asked me what it was, and I went, the Grouch?
Yeah, and I'm like, what is? I'm not going to order it, but what is Oscar? And she's like, oh, it's like kind of a crab cake type thing. I'm like, okay.
And then he's like, oh, I can't have that. And then it got Disney gets so intense about allergies. That's why we normally don't say because you're. But
I have a slight shellfish allergy, but I'm not like. I don't look at a shellfish and just drop over.
They really don't want to be like sued because my friend who I've gone to Disney with several times is allergic to bananas, and she always mentions it because she's a rule follower. She's like, oh, I can't have bananas, and they'll bring like our Diet Cokes out and they'll be like, there's no bananas in this.
But they put the little thing, the little allergy free thing. They put it in the chocolate cake. Yeah,
because we got our cake to eat in the room that night, and they put it in our cake. Ooh,
good.
Speaking of to-go things for the room, another funny story. We forget. I knew it was all coming back to me. So on July 3rd, the Magic Kingdom does the 4th.
Coming back to me now.
Okay. On July 3rd, the Magic Kingdom.
You said you wanted me to sing on today's episode.
The Magic Kingdom does the 4th of July fireworks as well. They do them 2 nights. I forgot that being at a monorail resort, that it might, some guests that don't want to go into the park might try to come over to the Contemporary to watch, because the Polynesian, that's where you can see like the America ones that they do really well. So like they have like wristbands and everything. Like it was hardcore.
But it's free for all at the
Contemporary. And Daniel and I, we weren't even going to go out and watch like on the floor. We just wanted to eat our. I got a buffalo chicken flatbread pizza from Contempo Cafe. It was 10 of 10, amazing. We just wanted to eat our dinner and watch Everybody Loves Raymond, a show that's, 30 years old at this point, in our beds and just be chill for the night. So first off, we take an amazingly long nap, and I get up to put in the mobile order, and I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, there's no mobile order time slots till like 9:45. That was like over an hour, like an hour and a half away, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I said, well, I was like, I'm already in my pajamas, y'all. I'm like, you're just gonna have to go down there. So he's like, okay. So I texted my order, and you want to explain your experience when you realize like, oh, everyone's here to watch. Because normally Contempo Cafe is chill. Even close to park closing, it's not extremely busy. Like some of like I feel like Pop Century, the moderate resorts, their food courts get packed. Contempo Cafe is not really that vibe as much. Like we even rope dropped Contempo Cafe one morning to get there at breakfast. Wasn't crowded at all. So you've never really had the experience that you have. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, you said you were in your pajamas. So was I. Like just a pair of athletic shorts and a t-shirt.
Mine are more pajama-y than yours.
And I always feel odd going down there anyways because most of the time the only people down there are dressed like they just came from the parks or not.
We're dressed like we're homeless. But
I get down there and it's just bananas down there. Like
I'm getting the text updates for that too. Like, this is crazy. There's so many people.
Chef Mickey's is like bumping.
Yeah. The
little wave bar they've got off to the side is just packed full of people, which you can't even see the fireworks from there. So I'm not sure what those guys were doing. The lobby area is all full, like just open containers abound. And I get in line to order and, of course, somebody was there experiencing their first day on Earth.
Yeah.
In the line, and
what is food?
and so they were just standing there, and finally somebody opens up the register, and I'm like, I gave them 5 seconds. The person said, the register person put their hand up, said next in line. I gave them a 5 count, and they just were standing there drooling on the menu. So I went around them and ordered. And I don't feel bad for cutting at all. I gave them 5 seconds.
Is that when you also saw had the shared experience with another guest that was clearly...
There was another lady down there. She was clearly wearing like
doing what we were doing.
Doing exactly what she was in, like bedtime clothes.
Maybe not watching Raymond, but yeah.
And we were both waiting on our mobile or our orders to be put over in the little shelf thing, and just kind of had just that moment of look of like, ugh, this is awful.
But then you decided, you were like, you know what? Because sometimes when it does get busy, the one thing about the Contemporary is the elevators
suck.
They're
bad.
It can be a very busy situation there because everybody's basically using them. So Daniel's like, I'm going to take the stairs. What happened there?
The stairs were full of people to watch the fireworks.
Yeah, you're like I didn't know
and
that.
They all had drinks.
Each floor, right?
Each floor, and there were kids running up and down the steps. The steps were wet.
Yeah, because it had rained.
And with puddles, that wasn't great. Thankfully, I only had to go up 3 floors, but it was like fighting for my life to get back up to the room so I could eat my pizza in my bed
and watch Everybody Loves Raymond. And I think it was like a Thanksgiving episode.
It was.
Everybody Loves Raymond that we were watching.
Which one was it?
The one where Deborah's parents are in their trip to Baden, but it turns out they're going to marriage counseling, and Ray hears the whole conversation.
That's a good one.
Has to keep it a secret. So yeah. That Raymond's like our show. One of our shows we realized we cannot watch. We're at Disney. So on Sunday nights, for some reason, they don't air Raymond. So Daniel and I were like, let's get a jump start on Squid Game.
Yep.
We watched the first 2 episodes of season 3, the final season, and then realized this is a vibe killer.
This is not a vacation show.
This is not a vacation show. So if you guys are, just holding your collective breaths, waiting for us to discuss shows we watched
next week,
we'll have Squid Game coming for you next week because we tried and it's just not it. You got to have us watch like Raymond's or just, I don't know.
It was honestly kind of
something
shocking.
Funny.
Like we started watching it, and the more we watched it, I
forgot how intense it was.
Do not want to watch this right now.
No.
Oh, get it away.
I'm trying to be in my happy place.
We're gonna finish it, and next week's episode is going to be heavily Squid Game season 3.
Yes.
But for this week.
It was a great vacation.
It was an absolute great vacation.
Let's get into some shows.
Yeah. So for this week, we do have a couple things that we have watched. I think first up on the list, you've talked in a previous episode about the Netflix show We Were Liars.
Not Netflix, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, sorry. And so you finished it.
Yes. I had watched, I believe, the first few episodes of We Were Liars. I was not aware that this show was based on a book, or I would have probably read the book first and then probably proceeded to not watch the show because it was so traumatizing. And I was like, yes, I love a rich people, beachy summer drama. It's like my wheelhouse. I was like, yeah, like feuding families, like kind of a Succession style, like family. Like I just love watching these rich people arguing, having their summers at their beach houses. It's just like one of my favorite like TV show shticks, if you will. I kept hearing about on TikToks and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this show's so sad. And I'm like, really? Like, how is it that sad? And then Oh my gosh. I stayed up like all night when I finished the show because I was that devastated, that traumatized. I'm like, you hear me, because you're already in bed, you hear me like hysterically sobbing. Okay. So Daniel popped in and out of it somewhat. So you kind of had a little bit of an idea. I was even talking to you. I was like, they better not Sixth Sense me. And they did. But the other way around. I thought maybe the girl. So the whole thing revolves around the girl whose name I now forget, the lead of the show. I can't believe
Best podcast ever.
Best podcast ever. Hey, I've had a Disney brain for a week, okay? It revolves around her. She's Emily Allen Lynn, plays the lead character, and she is going back and forth between summer 16 and summer 17. In summer 16, she woke up on the beach, and she ended up having to go to the hospital. She almost died. So, but she doesn't have any memories of it. So summer 17 rolls around, and she's trying to figure out what's happened, put it all together. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was like, is she like dead? And they're going to Sixth Sense me. And I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense because I've seen her talking to other people. Y'all, it was a reverse Sixth Sense. Her cousins, the other fellow liars, and her like boyfriend guy, dead. Just dead. And I am so mad at myself that I didn't put it together sooner because it actually was obvious. The one thing that threw me off was that one of the her male cousin would sometimes like talk to his mom, but then we find out at the end that the mom can also see ghosts.
You're losing your touch a little bit here on figuring these shows out.
I know.
And I have
Is this what
I have evidence. I have
Literally.
evidence
Oh
of
my
it
gosh.
because it's not just this
Shut
show.
up, don't
So
bring that
in a
up.
previous episode of this podcast, we talked briefly about how Hope watched the movie That Thing You Do.
Ooh,
And what is
that
Hey Hope,
thing
so
you
what is the
do.
name of the band in that movie?
The Wonders.
Okay, folks, I just want to tell you that it
Onagers.
took until the end of the movie when they Vecna number one it on their wrist. They said, "Oh, they're a one-hit wonder," and you pause it and turn to me and be like,
Wonders.
"Wait, what?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
I was in a good mood. It was a holiday weekend. I was vibing. I've always heard that song, and I remember my roommate in college watched that movie, and I never really paid attention to it, and I was just enjoying it. I still figured out Fight Club. I figured out The Prestige. I still have it.
That was years ago, decades ago at this point. You're losing your edge.
I gotta get
You're
it
losing your
back.
edge.
I gotta get it back. You know what's happening? Therapy is working too much for me. Therapy is like, just enjoy the moment. Be present. Why do you have to do all these things? So that's what I've been trying to do. What my therapist says is just enjoying it. And now I can't figure out the plots. Thank you for that, therapy. Anyway, that show was like,
We Were Liars.
We Were Liars.
Sorry for the tangent.
We Were Liars was traumatic. And that wasn't the most traumatic part, honestly. So they have these dogs, right? The two golden retriever dogs. And so at one scene in summer 16, they're like, oh, we need to give the dogs their anxiety meds and we're going to put them up. And I had forgotten about that plot point. So she's remembering how everything happens in the final episode. And suddenly she remembers. So basically what they did was, spoiler alert, again, we are a spoiler-free podcast, jump to the next chapter marker. If you don't want to hear me say the rest, this is your final warning. They decide they're going to burn down the house because that's what her and like the liars, her like cousins and her boyfriend, they're going to burn down the house because they want the family to get along. They want to send a message, and they just come up with this plan that they think that's how they can reset things, to burn it all down. So she's running outside and she realizes she forgot to get the dogs out. And then you realize like only ever her is where you see the dogs. You don't see the dogs around anybody else in the summer 17 scenes. And I can't watch a movie or a show where an animal is harmed. I almost turned it off and didn't even finish it, but I was like, it's the last episode. I've got to see it through. So I'm like bawling hysterically, and Daniel's like, I knew they were going to do something to those dogs, because you saw the episode where they put them in the closet, right?
Well, so there was like the 4th, was it a holiday or something? It was the 4th of July.
I don't know if
They
it
had
was
given
the
the
4th of July
dogs
or
some
not.
sort of tranquilizer to keep them calm, and then closed them in a specific
It
room
might
in
have
the
been
house.
the 4th.
And so they focused just like in the brief moments that I
enough
was
on
in
it
there.
too much.
The camera and just the focus of the show was just enough on making you know
Yeah.
they did that for such a minor thing. Whenever
But see, for
TV
me-
spoiler, if they ever focus on something that doesn't seem to make any sense to you whatsoever,
But
they're
see,
gonna do
for-
something.
See, for me, I thought the dogs were alive and well in summer 17 because I didn't realize that it was only her seeing the dogs.
ghost dogs.
And then there were scenes with the grandpa that would like still carry around the ball, and I assume that the dogs were alive. But really, it's just him remembering the dogs. He's a piece of trash, but I still feel sad that he lost his dogs and his grandkids, whatever. So then we have it like realized. She'll laugh that like when she finally gets her memories back, and she realizes that her cousins died in the fire and they didn't make it out. Like it took my breath away. Like I was just so devastated because I was like, I started putting it together before I did put it together a few minutes before the Vecna won me, and I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. I was like, I flipped it. I was like, they are sixth sensing me. I was like, because once I knew that the dogs were gone, I'm like, are the cousins even alive? And it was really sad. And you know how we've talked about One Tree Hill before with Clay and the fugue state?
Yeah.
This was actually, I feel like, a much more proper description of what the fugue state actually is. Like her body, it was such a traumatic memory because she feels responsible for it that she would literally like have a seizure and not be able to remember what happened because that was like her brain protecting herself. So we have that. We have the generational trauma of it all. It was a really deep show, and I was not prepared for how sad it was going to be. Like, I really do hope they get the sequel. There is a second book that kind of is like a prequel, if you will, about the sisters, which would be like the moms. And we have the little teaser at the end where the oldest sister, she can still see the one son. And that kind of explained it why I did see those two talking. Like they explained, like it wasn't like, they dropped the ball. And you know how sometimes shows irritate me where they go back and they show you stuff, but they add in scenes? This is not it. Like they didn't do that. Like you could clearly see, like, oh, I just missed that. Oh, when the one girl was talking to her sister was never talking to her. So it was really well done the way they did it. And I do think it really did touch some, sensitive topics, but it was not the fun show that I thought I was in for. So please hurry up, The Summer I Turned Pretty, because I am ready for some fun.
All righty. Well, it's that time of year again, at least for the last 4 years in a row now. We've
been doing this podcast for 4 years.
No, but we've been watching The Bear.
Oh, true.
In June, July for 4 years.
Yes, we have.
And here we are back again, The Bear Season 4. We did finish this one up completely in 2 days before we left for vacation.
Yes.
So it has had time to kind of soak in our minds a little bit. This was previously a show that was our best thing going. It has since fallen off that moniker.
It's still good, but it's just not the best thing going.
So, I think we're just going to talk about the season as a whole. Again, like she said earlier, spoiler alerts. We're going to talk about all the nitty-gritty stuff. But The Bear Season 4, what'd you think?
I thought it was a good season. I feel like you can tell that it was Season 3 and 4 were filmed together pretty much because it was very much a continuation of that. The pacing was still very much the same. Just to clarify what the best thing going is, it has to be a show that we know is going to get another season, and The Bear was confirmed that they are doing a season 5. I don't think they should.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's just go right to the end.
Yeah.
Let's screw it.
I feel like
season
it was
ends,
a satisfying end to me.
Yeah, the season ends, and I think that the last episode of this season was really well done, and a lot of people are going to hate it.
Yeah.
Because the season basically ended with a 30-minute episode that was just a conversation
in an alley,
in the alley behind the restaurant. That's it. They didn't do anything else.
But y'all, it was never about the restaurant. It was never about the chefs. It was never about the cooking. It was about Carmi's mental health, his acceptance of his brother's death, his
guilt over his brother's death,
his guilt that he wasn't there for that. The show opened in season 1 with him literally, I think, like on the bridge where I think Mikey took his life, his brother. That's what the show's always been about. Like, yes, we have the restaurant in the background. We get to meet the, Bear and the family and of the Brazados and the cousins in air quotes, and you get to meet all these characters, and you have the chaos of the restaurant. You have all the, chef scenes, the cooking scenes. But it was never about that. And It was about Carmi's mental health journey. And I said one of my big complaints from season 3 was I felt like Carmi was the only character that had really remained stagnant. And then season 4 starts and you can tell that he is trying, but I'm like, is he trying or is he just faking it? And I think at first maybe he was faking it, but he faked it enough and to actually be trying to get better and come to terms with his mental health. He finally sees his mom for the first time since the infamous Christmas episode, because it's revealed while he did go to Mikey's funeral, he never like went in to see the family. So like he hadn't even seen his mother, played by the amazingly talented Jamie Lee Curtis, who just nails that role.
She does. And
they kind of have some, closure together. And Carmi's still trying to figure out like himself, like, do I even like cooking?
Yeah.
Like, I know you can be brilliant at something and not like it.
That's correct.
Like, and I think that happens to a lot of people. And he realizes, maybe this isn't, my dream, and I need to figure out like, what do I actually like want? Like, am I only doing this because, and I can relate to that, where you do something because everybody thinks you should do it. I've done that many times in my life. Like, and it is really hard to have that, like, what do I even like? Like, just because I'm good at it doesn't mean that I like it.
I have those deep dark thoughts every day when it's like, do I actually like anything that I'm doing, or am I just doing it because other people said, hey, this is fun and cool, and you are good at it? And
I feel like Carmi finally got out of that freezer that he was stuck in for basically all of season 3.
And so this episode, Sid had been kind of putting off signing the partnerships agreement with the restaurant.
For 2 seasons, she ignored the DocuSign.
About midway through the season, Carmi has updated it, and we never found out what the updates to the agreement were. But she hadn't been reading it, and she'd been flirting with potentially going to another restaurant, but she decided against that, to stick it out with the bear. And of course, the bear also is on a timer the entire season for, hey, once this clock goes to 0, we are out of money, and it's day to day. We don't know if we can keep this place open or not. And so the final
beef side of it's making good money.
The beef side's making good money. So finally we get to this end episode, and the last night of having money is over, and like Carmi and Sid find themselves outside back of the restaurant, and they have the conversation, and Carmi breaks the news to her, like, hey, are you gonna, like, the agreement was, I wanted to talk to you before you signed it.
Yeah, and you're missing some details a little bit
She had found out from a phone call from the lawyer.
Yeah, because he tried to tell her, and then Sid's dad had a heart attack, and then Richie's ex-wife got married, so we had some like time go by, and then she found out from the lawyer, and this was your classic Hallmark plot where you have the
really was. It's kind of a points deducted. Yeah, to be honest,
where you have like the misunderstanding happen, instead of like communicating about it, you just get mad about it. So we had that. All right, proceed.
So the last episode is Carmi saying, hey, I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm not going to be an owner of the restaurant. The new agreement puts you and Richie. And
no, Richie wasn't on there.
Oh, Richie wasn't. You're right.
Yeah.
They put Sid and it put Sugar as the
Carmi's
two
sister.
partners on the restaurant. And then and he's out.
Yeah. And so Sid's like, cause Sid basically, I hate it. Maybe if the one thing we can get out of another season where Sid finally says, like, I ate your food in New York once. He still doesn't know that. Like, she's so in all of his talent, like, he still doesn't know that she, like, ate his food in New York, which I always thought that was an interesting plot point, because she's just so, like, I feel like, sorry, Sid Carmi shippers, unless they decide they want to fan service you guys, it's not about that. And I think Sid really shut it down, because they even had, like, Carmi's mom ask Sid at the wedding, like, she's like, no, nothing like that. And I don't think this is the show for shipping.
No,
it's just not happening. So, and if it does happen, it's going to either have to be done organically to make me believe in it, or I'm going to be like fan service. And I feel like they collectively shut that down, and she's not in love with him. She's in awe of his talent. And I felt like they kind of solidified that. But then you see the character growth from Sid, where she finally is like, you know what? Oh, okay, I'll agree if Richie can be on it with
and at
me.
That point, Richie had come out and joined the conversation. Cousin.
And that shows the growth between Sid and Richie, because they used to argue all the time in season 1.
And then Carmi also tells Richie that I did show up to the funeral. Yeah. And so they kind of work all that stuff out. Honestly,
those two
like,
had still had resentment as well.
Yeah. Talking about the final episode, I'm realizing that, like, my brain is turning this over as we are talking about this, and realizing that the final episode of this season is kind of like is like the entirety of the season summarized into this one episode, where it was just like,
I felt like it was a great final episode.
Oh, yeah, it was a great final episode. I think it's going to be difficult for some people who are looking for the chef action. They're looking for the chaos, because it's just 3 actors.
You think I like chaos?
It's just 3 actors having a conversation is what that last episode is. But I think it sewed up a lot of loose ends, and I agree with you. they've been greenlit for a season 5. I'm not sure it's needed or necessary.
Well, we had Richie. He's had the biggest kind of character journey, but this was time of finding the balance between his new persona, his old personality, and I felt like he finally got like the wedding episode where he just really got closure in that perspective. Like he knows that the Josh Hartnett, still looks good, that he's going to be a good stepdad to his daughter, and he knows that his daughter still loves him, but can also love, the stepdad too. And I felt like Richie, we had already seen him grow, and we got to see it taken to another level.
Yeah.
The only thing I would look forward to in a season 5, if they actually had time to develop it, would be Richie romance with the one brunette girl that works at that from the other restaurant that's now what do they call him? A Stodge?
Stoge
something, some restaurant speak.
I don't know.
So like Richie brings her in and a couple other people.
These are all fancy restaurants that I have no business being anywhere near, as we already discussed in this episode.
California Grill. Yeah. That's one of the when I ate at California Grill, I was like, I wonder if this would be like a ravioli that Carmi would make, and I'm like, California Grill is probably not even though it's fancy to us, probably nowhere near the fancy of those type of restaurants. But I thought, from I'm always watching for character perspective, and Tina had her focus in the napkins episode the previous season, and then her thing was having the confidence to finish that dish in that certain time frame, and she was able to do that. So she did have her shining moment on the show, and I felt like circling back to have the focus on really the 3 mains at the end made sense. And I think for me, I could have been like, no, it's not tying everything up in a neat bow. You don't know what's going to happen to the restaurant. But I think I could have been very satisfied by that finale because, like I said, it was never about the restaurant.
And life is rarely tied up into a neat, nice little bow like TV shows tend to do. Health. Yeah. It was about Carmi and his getting over the trauma from his brother's suicide.
And I don't know what they'll do for season 5. Those 3 main actors have all taken off.
They have.
They've like blown up since the first season of The Bear and have done a lot of projects. I don't know what the time frame's going to be. But before we end our conversation on The Bear, I would be remiss not to bring this up. So the facts, the 2 brothers.
Oh gosh.
Always some great comedy. So we've got a scene with Carmi going to where Claire lives, and he's basically, I think, finally going to say that he's sorry and talk to her. He knocks on the door, and not Maddie, but the other fac opens the door, and he's like, what? He almost has like a panic moment because the other guy's like in a robe or something. And then it turns out he's hooking up with, like, I think, Claire's roommate.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is like, I can't you say it.
Like a Disney Channel original movie.
Not a Disney movie.
Not a Disney
Channel
Disney
original
Channel.
movie.
He's very specific.
He's like, that type of love. And then, like, we have some other lines, and then he references one again. And I'm already sitting there in my head, like, thinking like what my favorite Disney Channel original movies were. Obviously, you got to have Xenon, Brink, and a little film I like to call Motocrossed. And he's like, it's like motocross. And I was like, ah! I was like, that is one of the best ones, Daniel. Did you ever watch that one?
No, I didn't.
I know you've seen Xenon.
I did not watch any of the Disney Channel original movies.
Make a heart go boom, boom.
That was one of the.
You told me you watched Xenon with Hannah.
It was probably on.
You've seen Halloween Town.
Only because you play it in 2024.
Halloween Town is like literally one of the best Halloween movies of all time, the original. Thank you very much. But that was a great moment in The Bear.
I do have one other show note from the show that I had
Larson?
typed out. No, but she was Francine.
Francie. Francie back.
So at the very beginning of the season, of course, and to the aftermath of season 3,
yes,
they got their review from the newspaper. And we got a shot of the newspaper's headline, and you called it trite. The newspaper headline was The Bare Necessities.
Yeah, that's like so like, okay, but that's the play on words that everybody would use. And I was like, that's dumb. Like, that's just so overdone. And I feel like if you're trying to be a pretentious person writing a review, you're going to do a little better job than that. I do think when it comes to the Brazados, let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. They kind of... the last time we saw them all together was that crazy Christmas episode in season 2 with the fork throwing, and you really saw kind of the bad sides of the family. They showed that why they all are the way they are a little bit, and why they do love each other so much. You got to see the good in the wedding episode. It was a little bit of a calmer experience. That table kept getting bigger and bigger.
I also liked that episode too, because what it also did was, if you recall, all of the times we'd seen them together we're seeing it from Carmi's perspective, were in the past.
Yes.
And Carmi hadn't been around them all like
Yeah.
this for a long
We'll see that
time.
people do change.
And people change and people evolve. And particularly is he dating Dee Dee?
He says they're just friends.
I don't know.
Donna.
Yeah. So
I just know him as the guy from Better Call Saul, the one that's the one Mikey threw the fork at.
And I don't remember the actor's name.
Her man friend.
Yeah, but so he like had a lot of growth and even came to tell Carmi like him and Mikey had kind of come to terms with each other.
Yeah, and they were like fine.
But
they
like
were cool
Mikey
with each
didn't
other.
know, or Carmi didn't know any of this because he hadn't been around, and I think that was one of the things too that kind of pushed him to be like,
because he had removed himself from the situation.
I'm removed myself from the situation, which at the time was probably the right decision, but now all these people have changed, and I've kind of missed all this.
And maybe have I not changed?
Exactly.
Kind of that.
Yeah.
Like, even though my skills got better, I went to New York and I got away from it. Like, have I not grown?
Yeah, I'm still the same while all these other people have evolved.
And I need to clarify because you kind of jumped in when I said the table kept getting bigger. We have this scene where Richie's daughter is hiding under a table because she didn't want to do the stepfather-daughter dance. And you have all the characters just coming underneath the table to talk. And that table got bigger and bigger and bigger.
It got longer. It got taller. It's very clear if you go back and watch the set dressing that they made the table taller and longer as the shot went on.
But that was a great episode. Oh, we got another little Taylor Swift wink with Richie. I was very satisfied. But like I said, my final comments on The Bear was if that was the series finale, I would have been absolutely fine with it. I will tune in for season 5, but I don't want them to. Sometimes we have problems with shows in this country where we let them go on a little too long and they start getting a little bad, a little stale. They go and it's at the expense of character growth. You have characters that backtrack their growth, and I don't want to see that. I would actually, I wouldn't mind it if season 5 started off with Carmi only being around as a guest actor, just coming in and out sometimes, and having the focus still be on Sid. Let's make her the main character.
Yeah, I think the big question
let's
for
shape
me.
that. Let's do her mental health journey because she still has a lot that she needs to work through.
Yeah, if I were writing the show, the biggest question that we have to answer immediately now that we've gotten greenlit for a season 5 is time jump, yes or no?
Yeah, I would.
And if
probably
yes,
time
how
jump it.
significant?
I would probably time jump it a little bit.
So, and some of that is going to depend, like you said, on actors and contracts because those 3 actors in particular are really blowing up, and getting them back together at the same time because they filmed this show in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's not like they are on a soundstage in LA or anything. Getting them all back to Chicago to film for, 6 to 8 weeks could be a struggle from a scheduling standpoint. So, anyways, The Bear season 4, we enjoyed it. If you've been a Bear enjoyer, I think you will enjoy it as well. Continues those characters' journeys on. Let's see. So we already talked about Squid Game. We're going to cover season 3 of that next week. So sit tight. We're going to watch it. We're going to have our coverage. Don't send us spoiler stuff, please. I've already been seeing a few things on TikTok, but I've
really
kind of
tried
stayed
to
away
avoid
from it
it
as best I could. So you briefly wanted to talk about everyone's favorite dirty soda show, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reunion.
Yes. So that dropped, I think, like July 1st or 2nd while we were on vacation. And I was like, "Ooh, let's watch that one evening." And you're like, "Oh, no. Can I please?
Can I please not?
Can I please not?" So I waited and I watched it Sunday afternoon. It was the reunion show hosted by Nick Viall, who you know from
Special
Forces. He has the podcast, The Viall Files. He's not my favorite, but I actually think he did a good job hosting this reunion show. Not a lot was revealed, honestly, because they're clearly keeping that stuff under wraps for season 3. So the stuff with like Jesse and Marciano and Demi and all of that, Jesse's like, I will talk about, because basically at the end of the season it sizzled that she might have like cheated on her husband with this guy from Vanderpump Villa. And she's like, that's all going to play out in season 3. I'm like, of course you're going to say that. There was actually some other like sad stuff revealed. Connor, Whitney's husband, revealed a story of his past with SA. That was really unexpected, but I think him, like, because I feel like I'm trying to say this as sensitively as I can. You don't hear about that from a lot of males because I think more men sometimes are afraid to speak out on those experiences.
It's difficult.
I think he's going to help a lot of guys by telling his story. So that was really sad, and it was really nice to see everybody supporting him. Even when that cast doesn't get along, I feel like all the guys always get along. They were all like watching the girls backstage, being like all talking together, but just like everybody was supporting him. So that was kind of a moment in the show, with like emotions, and you realize, while we see these people as reality stars on our TVs, they are, at the end of the day, they are real people. Perhaps the biggest announcement was, I knew it was coming. I knew. I was like, oh, come on, ABC. ABC Hulu is the same, under the same umbrella now. I'm like, give me one of these gals on Dancing with the Stars. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go, baby. Not only are we getting one, we're getting 2 Mormon wives on Dancing with the Stars. Jen Affleck, not related to Ben Affleck.
Too many.
Jen Affleck, not related to Ben Affleck. Confirmed. That's like a whole, if you know, you know. She's going to be on the show, and then I'm assuming they're probably going to have her dance with Ezra, because even though Zach came off better this season, I'm not buying it yet. I'm going to need to see more from Zach. I feel like after season 1, he saw how he acted, and this time, let's call it, I think he was aware of the cameras. So I'm like, how's he going to react when she has to do like the rumba, like the sexy dance? Like, is he going to freak out? We'll see. And then Whitney, our sometimes villain, sometimes not villain. Those 2 women are going to be on Dancing with the Stars. I bet they tried to get Taylor because she's the most famous one, and she's the one that started Mom Talk and was like the part of the whole, swinging scandal or whatever. I think she's in her Protect Her Peace era, and I think she turned it down because I guarantee you that's who they tried to get. So instead, we're getting 2 Mormon wives, and I'm really excited. I think if Whitney could improve her personality a bit, I think she could win because she's a really good dancer. So I'm super pumped about it.
Easy. Just learn how to dance and change everything about your personality, and you'll be fine.
Anyway, I'm very excited. And we got a little sneak peek for season 3. They need to give me season 3 ASAP.
And finally, on this episode of the We Watch TV podcast, Hope announces the thing that she will be torturing Daniel with for the next
almost paradise.
6 to 7 weeks.
We're knocking on heaven's door. That's what I wanted you to sing.
Not
Bachelor in Paradise is returning at the time of this recording, so we have not seen it yet. We did not get Bachelor in Paradise last year, and it was very sad, very unfortunate. They basically put the contestants in timeout, and the previous year, in a minute.
I had a question.
In a minute, I'll answer your question.
I was going to try and be relevant.
You can be relevant in a minute. The previous year, they waited so long to air Bachelor in Paradise that I was watching the finale at Thanksgiving week. We like to watch Bachelor in Paradise in the summer. What is your question?
Did I hear you say at one point or another that the golden
they're
cast is going to be in here too?
They're mixing the golden contestants with the youngins, and I have heard some spoilers that there is some intermixing betwixt the ages. They're in a different location. I think the place they used to film at in Mexico, they're not allowed to film there anymore. They're going to be in Costa Rica. Wells is still going to be the bartender. Hannah Brown, who you know from Special Forces as well, she is going to be the champagne room person. So she's engaged.
What does that mean?
I think she's just going to try to get tea from the contestants and help with the air quotes making of the drinks. I really think it's called, they know how popular Hannah is, and Hannah's got a wedding to do, and she wants to try to get that Bachelor Nation paycheck. So, you Hannah. So she's going to be in that role, but she's not when she was cast on there, everyone's like, oh my God, is she going to be dating? I'm like, no, she's literally getting married, I think, in a couple months. So I think they just they worked it out because they know how popular she is. And she clearly, I don't blame her. I would try to, soak up that Bachelor money. But apparently, I think The Bachelor and Bachelorette have been put on hiatus. And cast better people. So a lot hinges on how this Bachelor in Paradise was always my favorite. It was always the one that I wanted to watch. I think they're going to be doing more of a Love Island format as well. They're changing up the format with the roses.
What is that? Every now and then I get stuck on TikTok and I see all these Gen Z people going nuts about Love Island.
I'm a mama.
Is that where that's from?
Yeah, I'm a mommy.
Mamacita.
Mamacita?
Okay, so is it
Daniel,
just a reality show?
Love Island with me? Because let's do it. Let's get that. Let's get on that Love Island ship. You know that we'll be watching Perfect Match later this year because Rachel and Clayton from the same season of The Bachelor are going to be on Perfect Match.
I will only watch Love Island if we get outrageous demand from our loyal listeners.
Everybody, tell us, send in your comments. Tell us to watch Love Island.
This is the kiss of death. No one will say anything.
Anyway, I'm super excited for Bachelor in Paradise. You don't hate it. You loved the season where the poop thing was the drama. Remember the girl didn't poop for like 10 days?
Yeah.
And it was like, and the next week we're like, did she poop yet?
Yeah. I have to admit that the cast from the Golden Bachelor and Bachelorette being intermixed with the regular ones has me intrigued, simply not even from like a dating perspective, but just seeing those people of those different generations, because at this point
some of the older guys are hot.
At this point we're talking mostly like what,
Gen
Z versus X, and maybe
think, like,
some
the oldest
younger boomers
are maybe like 30.
Yeah, like that's a generational divide that could be very interesting to watch unfold.
And I hope it's fun.
So anyways, I guess I'll be tortured with that tonight. Thank you everybody for listening. Like we said, Squid Game season 3 next week. Watch it, tune in. We'll give you all the nitty gritty details and spoilers. And until then.
And one more PSA, when you put in your Walmart order, always make sure that you double, triple, and quadruple check it so you don't end up with 27 issues.
So you don't end up double, triple, or quadrupling your order.